Okay, Odyssey, book 14. This is Odysseus going up and finally seeing one of his own people again for the first time in a long time. So he limps up to Eumaeus's hut, and of course, when he gets there, he's almost attacked by these four dogs, these four guard dogs. He he could have killed them with like a kick and a punch because he's the mighty Odysseus, but he needs to play the role of this beggar now. So he falls down on the ground and he pretends that he's scared to death. And Eumaeus comes out and protects this stranger, and he treats him as a guest, and he brings him inside. And he is a very good host, even though he's not he's pretty much a slave of Odysseus. He's the swineherd, okay? But he feeds this stranger, this who is Odysseus. He gives him wine. He makes sure he's comfy. He sits him on a nice little bed of branches and with a blanket over it. And then he asks for Odysseus's story. This is good. These are the rules of hospitality that Eumaeus follows. And Zeus is the god of beggars and wanderers. So, and they he to you got to take care of someone that knocks at your door because it could be Zeus in disguise testing you. And indeed, this is Odysseus in disguise testing Eumaeus to see if he's loyal. And he is. And how do we know he's loyal? Well, Eumaeus constantly laments. He's very sad that Odysseus is not home. He hates the suitors, but he feels powerless to stop them. He loves Penelope and Telemachus. He's loyal, and he's a very good man. But he thinks Odysseus is definitely dead. But let's talk about lines 64 to line 82. He says, Eumaeus says, "It would not be right for me to show less respect, even to someone less worthy than you. All strangers and beggars come from Zeus, and our gifts to them are welcome through though small, since this is how it is with slave, always fearful of the masters over them, especially young masters. Yes, and the gods have blocked the return of the master who would have treated me with kindness, given me possessions of my own, a house, some land, and a wife courted by many. The things a kind master gives to his servant, whose long, hard work a god has made prosper, as the work I have done has come to prosper. My master would have rewarded me richly for this had he grown old here, but he's gone, perished, as I wish Helen and all her clan had perished. Helen is Menelaus' husband. She ran off with Paris, started the Trojan War. Since she has unstrung the knees of many heroes. Yes, he too went to Ilion, Troy, land of fine horses, to fight the Trojans on Agamemnon's account. So he's all upset. And he really has no faith that Odysseus is still alive. Lines 148 to 164, you can see. He says, but by now, dogs and birds have torn the flesh from Odysseus's bones, and his soul has crawled off. Or deep in the sea, fish have picked his bones clean, and they now lie on a shore somewhere, wrapped in deep sand. No, he's dead and gone, and there is nothing left for his dear ones but grief, and for me especially. For never again will I find a master so mild, however far I go, even if I go home again to my mother and father, where I was born and where they reared me. Yet as much as I miss them and miss my homeland, I miss Odysseus more, loyal swineherd. There I said his name. I would rather not say his name when he is not here, for he loved me greatly and cared for me. Instead, I call him my brother, though he is not here." So Odysseus says, he has a prophecy. He says, look, I think that before this month is out, Odysseus will come in the dark of the moon, before the new crescent. He shall return and take vengeance upon all those who dishonor his wife and son. So he makes a prophecy. And Eumaeus doesn't believe it. And eventually Odysseus actually bets Eumaeus that it will come true. He bets him, if Odysseus is right, that Eumaeus will have to give this beggar a new tunic and a new cloak, which is pretty funny. That joke comes up a lot during the revenge. But if he is lying and Odysseus doesn't come back, lines 425 to 431, Odysseus, disguised as the beggar, says, "If I'm lying, you can have your guys tie me up and throw me off the top of a cliff to my death." But of course, Odysseus, this will come true because he knows what's up. Now, the story that Odysseus tells to Eumaeus is a little different from the one he told to Athena. It's a little bit more involved, and it's very long. It's 170 lines or so. It really is a very long story, a couple pages. The basic gist is that he's from Crete. That is always where he says he's from. He's on the run. He says he fought at Troy. He went to Egypt. He stayed 7 years there, amassing money, wealth. And then he sailed off trying to get home. He got shipwrecked on Thesprotia. This is where he heard about Odysseus's adventures and said that, yeah, I heard that Odysseus was on his way home. And then he sailed off again. He was kidnapped and eventually ended up on Ithaca. A storm hit whatever boat he was on, and he became a beggar. He had nothing left. So that's the story that the beggar Odysseus tells. And Eumaeus says, okay, I believe your story, but I do not believe that you heard anything about Odysseus. He is sure that Odysseus is dead. And there's no way that this beggar, whoever this guy is, had heard of him as Odysseus made his way home. He tells the beggar that people lie to Penelope all the time about seeing Odysseus in this land or that land, and she always provides them with a free meal. And they know that she'll provide them with a free meal, so they come up and they tell her stories, and they're allowed a place for the night in a king's palace. So Eumaeus does not believe it. He really thinks that Odysseus is dead. He's kind of like Telemachus. He doesn't have any hope. Now, Odysseus' fake story at Troy, he says, you know what, I fought alongside Odysseus at Troy, and we got pinned under the walls one night, and Odysseus was so cold, but he didn't have a coat to cover him, but this other guy did. And he said, I need you, other guy, to bring a message back to camp, telling him that we're pinned underneath this wall, and just to send help in the morning or something like that. And the guy took off his coat and went to go deliver the message back to the ships, back to Agamemnon, and he left his coat on the ground, and Odysseus took his coat. So that's pretty smart. But the reason that the beggar tells this story is because he wants a coat, and Eumaeus understands. He takes the hint, and he gets the beggar Odysseus a cloak to be warm at night. So that's kind of a funny little story. Instead of the beggar Odysseus just asking for a coat, he makes up a fake story about Odysseus getting a coat under the walls of Troy. And then Eumaeus has to infer that the beggar needs a coat, so he gets him a coat. I don't know. It's kind of funny. Now, Eumaeus makes a warm bed for the beggar by the fire, Odysseus, which is where he should sleep. He's in charge of all the pigs. He's the swineherd. But instead of taking the place by the fire, he gives it to the beggar that just knocked at his door a few hours earlier. And Eumaeus goes to sleep outside to protect the pigs from any thieves. This is a good man. After 20 years, he's still protecting Odysseus's herds. So you know he's going to be along for the ride to get revenge on the suitors.